I've got a bit of a niche video to start the weekend. Now, as you guys know, I love a Garmin watch, and I'm a big fan of the Connect app. I use it with my bike indoors. I do a bit of Zwifting, and also log all my progress, my exercise, keep an eye on all my heart rate and HRV status and training readiness. You know, it tells me when I can do some weight training and when I'm kind of overdoing it a bit. And one of the things that really bugged me was when I was doing cycling. So I'm using the Zwift app, connecting it to the Garmin Connect app, and it's obviously uploading all that data to Connect. And it would keep telling me that I had a low anaerobic training score. So that was saying that I wasn't, doing good training, that I was below kind of a level of achievement, and it kept kind of down rating me. That was a pain because obviously I want to be training in a zone where I'm improving and my fitness is improving, and I'm trying to follow, what the watch is telling me. Garmin obviously have access to a lot more data and intelligence than I can throw at it. So I tend to try and trust what they say in terms of shaping my training around becoming fitter. And it would always just keep saying I wasn't doing enough anaerobic activity. Now, to me, anaerobic activity was these kind of short sprint efforts, as opposed to maybe a longer, sort of slower ride. And I understood pretty much what they were saying. So I started trying to input some of that into my training. And no matter what I seemed to do, it was always highlighting that I was, coming up short on anaerobic activity. And sometimes I would train really hard. I would do sprints. I would do these really long rides. I would come off the bike absolutely dripping in sweat, and it's still saying, yeah, you haven't hardly done any anaerobic activity at all. It was looking at me to get my heart rate up into the sort of 150 to 160 zone, given that my max heart rate is around about 160. So it's looking for a pretty high heart rate. I was even doing that, and it was still saying, I wasn't doing much. And I went on the forums and stuff, and I saw a lot of other people were having exactly the same issue. Some of them were kind of suggesting there was some kind of bug in the watch, or, it was going to be fixed in an update and all this kind of thing. And I just kept trying different things, and I thought, well, I must be missing something here. And I finally cracked how to start getting my anaerobic back into a good training status. So basically, the app breaks down into low aerobic, high aerobic, and anaerobic. And low aerobic would be, your sort of slow walk, or if you're going on the bike, a kind of really slow mooch around on your bike. And then your high aerobic would be a more concerted sort of medium grade effort. So for me, on a Zwift app, on an indoor bike, I would be sort of hitting around 200 to 220 watts. That would start registering as a kind of medium aerobic effort. And then anaerobic, like I said, you're looking to get your heart rate up into the kind of 150 zone if, say, your max heart rate was around 160. So pretty high, something you couldn't maintain for maybe more than a minute or maybe even 30 seconds. And I started messing around with different types of workouts, and I found a couple that really worked well. So I used these workouts that had short 30-second sprints interlaced with a very low heart rate. And this part's important. The other part that's important is don't do it over a period of time that's too long. So if you were doing like the Alpe Zwift, for example, which you might be doing that for like an hour and a half, and then you just did a few sprints in that time scale, the anaerobic activities would be so low percentage-wise compared to your medium aerobic activity in that they would almost come up with no score at all. They would be totally outpaced by the medium and low aerobic efforts. So you want to do something that's got a lot of short sprints in, say 6 to 10 short sprints, and then in between those you want a couple of minutes of recovery time each time to try and get your heart rate back down into the sort of, 110, 120 area. And your aerobic score, your high anaerobic score is going to be generated by this vast difference between the two, and you keep jumping between the two. So there was one workout called the ringer, for example. So I knocked my FTP status a little bit down on the app, on the Zwift app, because actually it had scored me so high on that, I don't think I could have made the high wattage sprints for that many times that it wanted me to. I think it was about 8 sprints there, and it wanted me to output about 650 watts, which would have been pretty crazy. I'm not a massive Zwift professional, I'm not a road cyclist. So I thought, right, well, I want to hit about 550. I know I can probably do that for about 30 seconds. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but I can do that. So I knocked my FTP score down. I think it was 302 to start with. I knocked it down to around 250. You can just do that with the slider on the side of the app. And then I started this ringer workout. And as I say, it had these, a little bit of a warm up, then straight into a sprint. So I'm hitting 550 watts for about 30 seconds. Then it's like a cool down for about 2 minutes. Then repeat the same process over and over again. After I'd done that, I got a really good anaerobic score for the first time ever, and I'll flash it up on here. You can have a look. I actually got a purple line on my workout to say, yes, I'd done an anaerobic workout. And it actually took me into the zone that meant I'd had a productive anaerobic workout. So that's the first time I've ever managed to do that. And what seemed to be the big difference was it was only a half an hour workout, and that half an hour workout was completely interspaced with sprint, rest, sprint, rest, sprint, rest. And, the sprints were really hard, but also important. The rests were very restful. So it's a case of getting your heart rate right back down, right back up again. And that's what it seems to be measuring you against. I also found another workout of a similar ilk, and it might be a bit difficult to find. It's L'École Training with Legends, and the legend it had you training was with Fabian Cancellara, and that one was called Anaerobic Blasts. So you should find that in the L'École Training with Legends folder. And again, very, very similar. It had these, rapid interspace between rest at about 150 watts, and then these kind of hard sprints that were about 560 watts. And you were doing those for 30 seconds apiece. And again, it wasn't a really long workout. It was about just under 30 minutes, I believe. And that also generated a really good anaerobic score. So now I'm able to actually optimize my training in a week. So I can do all my usual training, but then I throw 2 or 3 of these anaerobic sessions in, and that will mean that I've had a productive training week. Now, that might not sound like much to you guys, if you're not really into this kind of stuff, but believe me, if you're a bit obsessive compulsive and you're using the Garmin Connect app and it keeps on flagging you up as not having trained properly, it gets super, super irritating. And this is kind of a game changer for those guys that want to make sure that they're inputting that anaerobic activity into there. The other thing I found was that cadence played a part. And this is kind of something I suppose to do with people that are fairly new to Zwift like me. All I'd done in previous times on bikes was going out on mountain bikes. I'd had a pretty low cadence. I was just bumbling about. And then when I changed it into like a tough gear, changed the gears down and pedaled really hard, I still had quite a low cadence. So it was kind of a muscular workout. And what I found out with Zwift, that if I did that at a fairly low cadence, it was actually putting me into what it calls the neuromuscular zone, and it wasn't putting me into the anaerobic zone. So whilst I was getting out like 500 or 600 watts and sometimes even more, like 900 watts, I was doing it at low cadences of sort of 60. And what that was doing was straight away flagging me into this neuromuscular zone, which is almost like it's like a super intense kind of leg muscle workout, rather than looking at the cardiovascular aspect of it like it would with the anaerobic. So the Garmin app doesn't actually note this type of training at all. It doesn't have a neuromuscular section in it. Maybe that's something they'll add. So that might be a kind of reason that people are seeing this problem with the anaerobic flagging up. If they're going really hard at a low cadence and the Zwift app is flagging that up as neuromuscular, that's probably not then transmitting across and being logged in the Connect app as the anaerobic, the high anaerobic stuff. So that may even be lost in the process. You might not get any marks for that whatsoever. So for the time being, I'm just going to stick with these high cadence, short, sharp bursts interspersed with the rest periods. And to be honest, for cycling, I was doing it completely wrong. You shouldn't have a low cadence anyway. I found that now I can output a high wattage for a lot longer by, say, bringing my cadence up to 100, 110, even more than that, 120 in some cases. And that way I can get, 600 plus watts, and I can do that for my 30, 45 second blast. And I'm nowhere near as exhausted as I would be if I was on the low cadence and ramping up the gears and just trying to get that wattage out that way, because that's almost like doing squats or something in a gym. It's really, really tough on your leg muscles, and it kind of ruins you completely for the next round of whatever you're going to be doing on the bike. It's even a struggle to just ride on at about 200 watts after you've done that. Imagine doing squatting and then trying to jog afterwards. It's not going to happen. So I've learned a lesson. Keep the cadence high, whatever you're doing. And if you want to get that anaerobic score up, just check out some of those workouts that replicate that kind of pace. You might even want to make your own. So what probably I'm going to do next time is make a workout that is maybe 30 seconds bursts for the sprints. And every sprint, I'm going to put that at, say, 580 watts just to up things a little bit. And then intersperse those with 1.5 minute rest breaks in between. And those rest breaks will come in at about 150 watts. So there's a big difference between the two. And that's going to just allow my heart rate to drop right back down again, get it down into the 120 region, and then boom, bang it straight back up to like your 150, 155 type region. That's going to flag you up in the app as having done everything you should have. Guys, I hope that helps. It was absolutely annoying me, and if it was annoying you, then this will be something you will really appreciate. If you're not into the Garmin Connect app and you're not doing Zwifting, you're probably thinking, what the hell's this guy talking about? Sorry about that. I would strongly advise, if you want to get fit, it's a great way to do it. I really love the Garmin Connect stuff. I love Zwift. It costs a few pounds a month to be a member. Quit your Netflix membership, get a Zwift membership, buy yourself a home bike. You won't regret it. My cardio fitness has never been as good as it is now. I'm 47, and I didn't really know what cardio fitness was until I started Zwifting, and I found out pretty quick that, it's a tough thing. And I'm improving rapidly. So however old you are, there's always room for improvement. And now I'm actually in a state where I can run down the road for a few miles and back again, and I'm not kind of falling over and dying at the end of it. And I can actually do it in relative style. I don't look awful when I get back. I'm not absolutely drenched. I'm drenched when I come off the Zwift bike, but that's another story. I hope that's been of use to you guys. Take care. Have a great weekend. See you all soon.